I think it's important for you and everybody to understand that you shouldn't look at the value of the dollar in relationship to other currencies as much. I mean, they're all bad currencies. So we can get into why Europe is a bad currency and why the yen is a bad currency. They're all bad currencies. And they are all depreciating in buying power, just like the 30s, just like the 70s. They all depreciate in relationship to what they can buy. Currency is money. But when we look at them, one in relationship to another, we may not pay attention to that. So that's our existing set of circumstances. You know, okay, the answer is the euro? Are you kidding me? We can go on about Europe's situation. Wow, oh my God. And then, okay, what are they doing in the end? They're just printing the money, whatever it is. And so the question is, what is a storehold of wealth? You know, money is a medium of exchange or a storehold of wealth. And it's not a good storehold of wealth when the interest rate you're receiving is much less than the inflation rate. So that's what you're seeing happen. This is the question of our time. We will, over the next 10 years, certainly, I think, be trying to find the answer of what is the storehold of wealth, because usually it's a money and then a debt instrument in holding that money. But as that goes down, then there is the question of what it is. What is that currency and storehold of wealth? So we're in that place. It's always handy to be the thing that is your buying power. You're going to see it more in inflation hedge assets. So like if you're thinking about a bond, it's better to think about an inflation hedge bond than to think about a TIPS or inflation hedge assets along those lines. And I think that you're going to see then the parts of the economy. So like I think basically, if I was saving, what would I want to save in? I'd like to save in the things I know that I'm going to need. So I would like to save in like my residence, my house. I would like to save, if I could, pay forward my kids' education, pay forward the food or the health care that I can, and so on. I would want to save in those things to buy forward the things I need, most fundamentally. I think if we start to think that way, not only in terms of the investment, but what are even the meat and potatoes type of businesses that are doing that? And then also, I think that you have to think geographically. Where is best in the world? Best in the world are countries in which they're earning more than they're spending and their balance sheets have more assets and liabilities on them, that they're civil with each other and they're not in conflict, and they're not in risk of an international war. It's basically those fundamentals. And then I would say we are in an intellectual revolution, that our capacity to invent and think and use technologies to help us think has never been greater than before. And so those revolutionary type of technologies, when they're cutting edge, I think that those are good investments. And I think then what you have to do is also diversify. That because the thing I learned is it's all return in relation to risk. Everybody looks at how much return you make, but it only takes one time to knock you out. You know, Bridgewater's been doing this 47 years, and we survived. You have to survive first. It only takes one time to knock you out of the game. And so you should never lose more than X amount of money that you can't recover, because you lose 50%, it takes 100% to get back. So diversification, knowing how to do that well, allows you to reduce your risk by up to 80% without reducing your return. So I think that those would be the approaches that I would emphasize in this environment. Generally speaking, I don't think we're going to have a sustainable interest rate that is going to be a real adequate interest rate. And so I would stay away from debt issues. Now, the interest rates went from ridiculously stupid interest rates, and they're coming in an area that still I think is too low, but it's not as ridiculous as it was before. They have to get really, so when you play with that game, if you want me to just do it, I'll just give you my thought real quick. Okay, what would be the equilibrium interest rate for the equilibrium inflation rate? Okay, we're going to have probably, I would estimate, somewhere between a structural employment inflation rate, maybe in the vicinity of between 4 and 5%. In a highly uncertain environment, you can't even be sure of that, but let's say that. That means then what is the real bond yield? Okay, so you have to go to that. We now have about a 1.5% real bond yield. Do you still have a 1%? So you have to have the bond yield give you something. I don't know what that is, but that brings it above 4.5% to some other number. And you have to have relatively tight money, which means that you have a fairly flat yield curve. So I don't know whether that's 4.5%. The economy could not take an interest rate much higher than that before it's going to be negative. So those are the things that enter into my thinking in terms of what markets and what the portfolio would look like.